Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion from fourth canto, chapter number 25th. First of all, I would just I hope and pray everyone is well, considering again in India, especially COVID situation is affecting so many people and devotees. So after having the discussion on the Rudra Geet, there was a mention of Prachini Barishad, who is actually one of the descendants of Dhruv Maharaj, and his sons are the Prachetas, who were instructed by Lord Shiva in Rudra Geet. So, in this chapter, we'll see how. So, can you enable the screen sharing so that way? In this 25th chapter, which is entitled Description of Characteristics of Puranjana, is mentioned. So when the Prachetas actually, after hearing the Rudra Geet, they went under the water and recited that Rudra Geet for 10,000 years. Meanwhile, Narad Muni came and met King Prachini Parishad. So that is the main connection. And we will see here that actually Narad Muni wanted to show his mercy on Prachini Parishad, understanding that Prachini Parishad was coming in line of Dhruv Maharaj, one of the great devotees of the Lord, and to help him come out of his Karma Kandiya indulgence, he told the story of Puranjan. So this is an allegorical story, very nicely in the next few chapters. This story will proceed, which Narad Muni uses to convey a point to King Barishat or Prachini Barishat. So then there is a description of how he meets Puranjani, a lady, and he becomes, while describing Puranjan's story, so Puranjani becomes the queen, and then the 9 gates and their inhabitants are being described here. So going to the first verse. So Narada meets Prachini Bari, is mentioned, and first is the description is asked about so Narad Muni came and asked Prachini Parishad in text number 4, Shreyastvam katamat rajan karmanatmana ihase dukkha hani sukha vapte shreyastanneha cheshyate. So he's asking Narad Muni, so you are performing so many karma kandya rituals. So what do you intend to achieve by this karma kandya rituals? So actually he is saying dukkha hani sukha vapta. The whole purpose should be to have dukkha hani, should be getting rid of dukkha or miseries, and sukha avaptihi, and one should get pleasure. So, but are you able to get that? So Prabhupada very nicely puts it in the purport that in this world, if anybody wants happiness, he has to undergo a lot of misery to actually get happiness. He has to do some tapasya, he has to work very hard. So he will not get happiness just like that. He has to work hard for it. And even if one gets happiness, it's very, very flickering. and one has to suffer the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. So, how just by doing karma kandya rituals, you may think you may get some higher destination within this material realm through karma kandya rituals, but it will not help you attain this principle of dukkha hani and sukha vapti, as mentioned in text 4. So, understanding the that Narad Muni has come, so being of saintly nature, Prachini Bharishad says in text number 5, na janami mahabhaga param karma apavavididhi bruhi me vimalam jnanam yena muchye karma bhi. So tell me this vimalam jnanam, this pure knowledge. Please instruct me in pure knowledge. Vimalam jnanam, which will help me muchyeya karma bhi, which will release me from this entanglement of fruitive activities. So in this mood he asks, and then he says, as mentioned here, he mentions this verse that I am like a grahamedi who is entangled in this fruitive activities. Graheshu kuta dharmeshu putra dara danarthadi na param vindate mudo brahmayan samsara vartmasu. So he's saying, Graheshu kuta dharmeshu. I am in kuta dharma, in this graheshu, in false occupational duties, kuta dharma. Putra, with my children, dara, with my wife, dhana, the wealth, artha, the goal of life, dhi. So, na param vindate mudo, brahmayam samsara vatmasu. And I am brahmayam, I am just wandering in this samsara vatmasu. Again and again, I am wandering. Being entangled in this so called kuta dharma of this family life, considering the wife, the children, the wealth as my ultimate goal or which will give me happiness. So I am not clear what to do. So understanding this, then please instruct me. So Narad Muni very beautifully in the next few verses, 2 verses, he wants Prachini Bharishya to get attached to this fruitive karma kandya rituals. So he gives him a vision of what his destiny would be. The animals he is sacrificing, how they are awaiting to torture him like they have been tortured. So that vision he shows in 7th and 8th verse, where he says that please see in the sky these animals who have been sacrificed without compassion in sacrificial arena, waiting for you to come. And and they are waiting with iron horns and they will pierce your body revengefully. So Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that how it is very, it's not that, it's actually, it said the sacrifice, the animals which are sacrificed in these rituals, they get a new body. But Narad Muni and Prabhupada are explaining that it's a very risky affair. Why? It's a very risky affair because if there is any little discrepancy in these fruitive activities, in this karma kandya rituals, one will not be able to give the destined new body to these poor animals and will get implicated uh, uh, in this ritual of killing the animals and will have to suffer. So Prabhupada is saying Narad Muni wanted to draw the king's attention to this, that animal killing is not encouraged even in sacrifice. So like that, he, through his mystic power, showed this vision to King Prachini Bhari. So that is how Narad Muni, first of all, gives him a glimpse of what is awaiting him. So now, Narad Muni, he can understand he is talking to a king, and king may want to hear a message which is interesting, put in an interesting format. So he tells him an allegorical story. So from text number 9 to 24, Narada narrates the story of Puranjan. So first of all, he says that how uh, there are various points which are mentioned. So first in text number 9, he says, Atra te kathayishyamu itihasam puratanam puranjanasya charitam nibodha gadato mamaha. So I will tell this story of an old history connected to the king called Puranjan. And please, Nibodha Gadato Mamaha. Please hear attentively, try to understand. So, and further, he says that this is Puratan Itihasa. So, Prabhupada is telling that how uh, this is when the living entity got connected with this body. Actually, in the purports, Narad Muni first tells the allegorical story. But in the purports, Prabhupada is already explaining what the allegory is referring to, the different parts of the body. Actually, Narad Muni explains that in the later chapters, but Prabhupada is explaining that here only. So, how the living entity is connected or conditioned from time immemorial. It's a very old history. So this is an allegorical presentation because a person who is entangled in fruitive activities wants to hear stories of material activities. So Narad Muni is telling the philosophy, the truth in such beautiful allegorical story. But this story is none other than of King Prachini Bharishat himself. So even though King Puranjan is used, but it's of Prachini Bharishat himself. It's mentioned that how there is Bhurishravaha. So his activities are celebrated as Brahatshrava, and he has a friend named Avigyataha. So Avigyataha is referring to the Paramatma, who is unknown, but he is residing with the living entity always. And he is Bhurishravaha. Puranjan is Bhurishravaha. From time immemorial, Prabhupada says that the word Shrava means fame, and the living entity is famous from ancient times. Why? Because he is na jayate mriyate va. He never is born, never dies, and his activities are eternal. So therefore, is Brahat Shrava. The eternal living entity is called Brahat Shrava because he is famous for his activities, although they are performed in different types of bodies, depending on what kind of body he gets. So then he traveled in different parts of the. So he's looking for a suitable place, and while looking for suitable place, he's traveling to different parts of the world, and with the desire to fulfill sense gratification, desire to enjoy. But he could not find a place of his life liking, and therefore became a little morose and disappointed. So that is mentioned. Uh, so this is compared to how a living entity is trying to traverse in different planets, in different bodies in this universe. But wherever he is looking for happiness, he gets dissatisfied, disappointed, because his desires are not getting fulfilled. So that is mentioned. And then once while traveling, he saw a city of 9 gates. So this refers to the body, which has 9 gates, 9 holes through which things pass. And it's mentioned that he came across this in uh, in Bharatvarsha. If you see text number 13, it mentions that he saw this place in Bharatvarsha. Uh, so Prabhupada is emphasizing on the importance of birth, human birth in Bharatvarsha, and how one can actually execute right from birth, pious activities, having knowledge, and how there is favorable condition, etc., etc. Lame man and blind man, analogy Prabhupada is giving in the purport. Now, from 14 to 19, there's description of city of nine gates. So he has seen this city. So now, what are the different things which are there in the city? So, capital of the city is mentioned to be the heart. The capital of the city is the heart, and it's surrounded by walls, parks, towers, canals, windows, outlets, and is uh, so that is mentioned. So the wall prakara is the skin. The parks are referring to the hairs on the body. Towers, atala is referred to highest parts like nose and head. Trenches or canals are referring to wrinkles and depressions which are there in the body. Windows, aksha is referring to the eyes through which the jiva sees, goes out. Gates are referring to eyelids, and houses with gold, silver, and iron domes are referring to the three modes or three dhatus: mucus, bile, and air. So that is mentioned in text number 14. 15 mentions about heart as the capital, and there are various floors made of sapphire, crystal, etc., which represents the various desires and plans of material enjoyment which the living entity has in his heart, which is the capital. Then in text number 16, it's mentioned that there are assembly houses, center of all remembrance, like heart is the center of all remembrance, forgetfulness, and deliberation. So these are the things which are there in the heart. Assembly house, like the capital has the assembly house, which represents the center of all remembrance, forgetfulness, deliberation. Street crossings, so where the street crossing represents the air which passes through various crossroads while uh, executing the functions of mouth, nose, eyes, ears, etc. Flags and festoons are the palms and soles of feet. Streets are the Shushumna, Ida, Pingala running down the spine. Gambling houses are the gross location of the senses. Market is the gross mind, and resting places are the chitta. So that are mentioned. So basically, there is a description of the city of nine gates, which actually represents the body. And there are various facilities which are there, starting with the capital, which is the heart, which is the storehouse of desires to enjoy in this world. So various facilities are given. So allegorically, Narad Muni is explaining what the various facilities are, and in turn, they are actually the facilities which a jiva gets in this body to enjoy. So that is being addressed here. So then it's mentioned that there are beautiful trees and creepers encircling a nice lake, groups of birds and bees. So favorable conditions surrounding the sex impulse, that is mentioned. Then wind, waterfall, spring air. So different kinds of rasa, smell, non-violent animals. They refer to no sinful reactions due to past pious results. And cooing cuckoos attracting travelers to rest in nice gardens. So that is mentioned as persons dividing their enjoyment amongst family members, friends, and guests. So these are the various facilities which are there for the jiva in this body. So after describing that, when he's traveling and he has entered the city and he has taken residence in the city, he is traveling, and then he comes across in 20 to 24th verse, it's mentioned that this Puranjana, he comes across a beautiful woman and he is attracted to her, and her name is Puranjani. So that is mentioned from text number 20 to 24. So it's mentioned in text number 20, Yadrichaya agatam tatra dadarsha pramadottamam भृत्येर दशभीर आयंतिम एकैक शत नायके. Yadrichaya agatam tat. Yadrichaya, by chance, all of a sudden, without any uh, uh, particular course of action. Yadrichaya agatam tatra. So he arrived Dadarsha Pramadottamam. He came across this Pramada Uttamam, very beautiful woman. Bhritye Dashabir Ayantam, and she was surrounded by servants, Dashabhi, 10 of them, Ekeka Shatanayaka, and each had hundreds of Nayake. They had hundreds of other wives. So acharyas are explaining that this Puranjani, the beautiful woman, she represents the material intelligence. With 10 servants, they are the senses, the males, and each having hundreds of wives or nayakei, they represent the unlimited desires which the material intelligence has. And it's mentioned in the next verse that he was protected by a 5-hooded snake. So that is representing the vital force. So that is constantly accompanying this material intelligence or the jiva. And she was beautiful and young, and she appeared anxious to find a suitable husband. So intelligence cannot act without consciousness. Intelligence always has to be in line with consciousness, the living force. It cannot be independent. So this is mentioned. Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. So then it's mentioned that how she was anxious to find husband and Puranjana was attracted to her. So her complexion is mentioned to be, text number 22 mentions Sunasam, Suditam Balam, Sukapolam, Varanana, Sama Vinyasta Karnabhyam, Vibratim Kundala Shriyam. So she had beautiful formed body, and the description is given. So beautifully decorated face is ways of acquiring knowledge. Beautiful nose is knowledge of smell. Beautiful teeth is ability to taste flavors and chew. Beautiful forehead, clarity of intelligence. Beautiful ears, ability to understand meaning of scriptures concerning enjoyment and liberation. So how this intelligence, this beautiful woman is decorated. So that is representing the various abilities to enjoy with the mouth, with the ears, with the tongue. So that is mentioned. And then text number 23 mentions that how she's dark in complexion. So that is representing that how the jiva, his intelligence is covered by ignorance, dark in complexion, dressed in a yellow sari and golden belt. So intelligence is covered by actions in rajas is mentioned, and 2 feet jingling with ankle bells. So intelligence is unsteady in hearing scriptures. So jingling bells, unsteadiness. So that is represented that this Puranjani, the woman representing the material intelligence, is unsteady when hearing scriptures. So Nuparer Devatamiva. So that is mentioned about this. Then it's mentioned in text number 24 that how she is very youthful and she has 2 breasts which are representing the raga and dvesha. The raga, attachment, and dvesha, aversion. So having it's like 2 extremes. The tendency of the living entity is to go from one extreme, from attachment to dvesha, to aversion, to one extreme to another extreme. So it's like a pendulum. So going from one extreme to another extreme. So this beautiful woman representing material intelligence has this raga desha, and she's very youthful. That means this raga and dvesha are always are in youth or are always young. They never get old. The tendency to be in raga and dvesha is always within the living entity, and they are very bewildering. And she is trying to hide uh, or cover her breast. So that is representing how the acharyas are pointing out that those who are pious, they try to hide the raga and dvesha. They and how even anarthas can be transfigured in bhakti. So Prabhupada is giving the example of Hanumanji and that how he used his krodha to actually burn the Lanka. So how one can use uh, you know these the material encumbrances also in service of the Lord. So how raga and dvesha are the nature of this material intelligence, and they are ever youthful. So then, being attracted, Puranjana proposes to this queen, to this beautiful woman, and she eventually becomes Puranjana's queen. That is mentioned in text number 25 to 44. So text number 25th mentions how Puranjana hero is a hero and he became attracted to the eyebrows of the smiling face and the arrows of lusty desires of this. So although he is a hero, he is a Veera, but he could not refrain himself from addressing her. So that is mentioned. And so it's mentioned that Prabhupada says that the jiva is bound by ignorance, material intelligence, by his own free will. The Lord doesn't bind him by force. So he, by his own free will, Puranjana, who is representing the living entity, he, by his own free will, wants to get connected with this Puranjani, material intelligence. So he proposes. So it's not that the Lord binds the living entity with this material nature. And secondly, he is addressed as a hero. So Prabhupada is pointing out there are two kinds of heroes. First, hero in this material world is who is working under the direction of his senses. So people in this world are called heroic when they come under the dictations of their senses and show their prowess in this world. But a spiritual hero is one, he's a Goswami, who can actually restrain his senses from sense objects, but focus on the eternal occupation. So that is mentioned. And then Puranjana in text 26 to 27, he's inquiring from uh, this beautiful woman, Puranjani, who are you? Whose daughter are you? You appear very chaste. What is your purpose of coming here? Why? What are you doing here? Please explain. Kim Chikarshasi Sam Sham me. This is my doubt or my inquiry to you. So who are you? So Prabhupada is pointing out that this is the kind of questions a living entity should put to his intelligence. Why am I entangled? From when I am entangled? So this is the kind of questions like he is asking Puranjani. So in the lower forms of life, this is not possible. But in human form of life, one should inquire like that. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, Prabhupada is saying. So why I am here? And further he asks, my dear, who are the strong bodyguards that are accompanying you? Who are the women servants who are accompanying you? Who is the snake who is with you? So like that he's asking. So these are the questions one should put to his intelligence. So then he says, Tam Rir Bhavani Asya Athava Gramapatim. So uh, are you Bhavani or Saraswati or Lakshmi? So how come you are alone in this forest like a great sage? Are you looking for your husband? I think you must be Lakshmi. So he is like kind of imagining so many things. He's saying, are you Bhavani? Are you Saraswati? Are you Lakshmi? Oh, you must be Lakshmi. But I do not see a lotus flower in your hand. Where did you throw your lotus? So like that, he is asking this Puranjani. Uh, so then Prabhupada is pointing out that how the jiva doesn't know how to employ his intelligence. It should be employed in service of the Lord, but he is thinking that I will enjoy. So uh, I want to enjoy in this world. So he's thinking, oh, are you? Prabhupada is giving the example of Ravana. He wanted to enjoy Mother Sita. So, so one becomes conditioned in this material world and is not attracted to liberation like that. So that is the nature of a demoniac mentality. So the lotus flower which he's talking about, Acharya's mentioned, is the discerning power of the jiva. Everyone thinks that his intelligence is perfect, but being bewildered, he does not know how to employ his intelligence. Intelligence should be employed in the service of the Lord. So the lotus not being there is the discerning power of intelligence, because the Puranjani represents the intelligence, but it does not have the discerning power to use the material facilities, the material, uh, uh, the body, the mind in service of the Lord. So that is the nature of this jiva who is in uh, strong bondage with this material intelligence. So he's saying that, oh, but I thought you are these women, but I see that your feet are touching the ground. So the celestial women or the inhabitants of Vaikunta or heavenly planets, their feet don't touch the ground. So therefore, you are not one of these. And so I propose that you beautify my kingdom, accompanying me, and then we will enjoy. Uh, just as Lakshmi is accompanied by Lord Vishnu, decorates Vaikunta, so you should decorate my kingdom, accompanying me. So then Prabhupada points out that at least devotional mentality is there, that I don't want to enjoy, not devotional, but pious mentality of Devata, that when uh, the Devatas they want to enjoy in accordance with the regulations mentioned in scriptures. So that kind of mood he takes. He says that I am agitated. Your glance and shy smiles are agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. So please be merciful upon me. So that is my desire. So the jiva's impressions of sense object produced especially by intelligence attack him. He asks for enjoyment of sense objects such as sound and touch. So the intelligence is filled with desire for material enjoyment, and they impel him, being attracted by the sense objects, to get a sense of touch, sense of smell. So that is what is being described, where Puranjana is very uh, he's being like uh, he's agitated by the beauty of this Puranjani. So that is mentioned. Then he is saying that please kindly show your face to me, and with your beautiful eyebrows uh, and your bluish scattered hair, you speak sweet words, but do not show me your face out of shyness. So Puranjana, Acharya's mentioned, is attracted by avidya. He now wishes to see the complete features of avidya. So face represents avidya, and he wants to see the complete features of avidya being completely conditioned to this body he has received with material intelligence. So he's saying, please show me your face. So the face with beautiful feature indicates form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. And he prays to enjoy them. So that is the mood in which he is uh, expressing his desire. So Prabhupada is in the purport, if we read, he's mentioning about avidya, vidya, how there's description in Ishopanishad about different results obtained through vidya and avidya. And Prabhupada is also mentioning some social aspects in his purport in this section about the attraction between man and woman. So then in text number 32, Puranjana also got attracted. Puranjani, the intelligence, is also getting attracted to Puranjan, and she spoke to him like this. So, so she started speaking. So because she was asked, "Who are you? Where have you come from? Whose daughter are you?" So she says that I do not know who has begotten me. I cannot speak perfectly about this. And I don't know the origin of those who are accompanying me also. So I am not, I'm in ignorance. I don't know the answer to this question. And Prabhupada says this is called ignorance. That factually the jiva with material intelligence does not know from where he has come to this existence, from where he has attained this body. So he should do some Brahma Jigyasa. He should think about how to attracted to his real, Swabhav. So then she further says that I only know that I am being existing in this place today and nothing else. I do not know who has created this residence. So this is also not clear to me. So the Acharya is pointing out the living entity in this material world is ignorant and doesn't know his origin, the purpose and the source of material creation, and ultimately the Lord. So when she's saying, I do not know, the intelligence, because it is material in nature, it is not able to decipher or able to establish why I got conditioned, from when I am entangled in this body or in this material creation. What is the purpose and source of this creation? Who is Lord? So he's fully ignorant of that. So that is mentioned. And then text number 35, he says that all these associates, man and woman, with me are known as my friends. And the snake always resides, even when I am sleeping, he is awake. So, so like Prabhupada is pointing out that how when the living entity sleeps, he is not told to be dead because the snake life air is still active. The life air is keeping him alive. The snake is still, even though the intelligence or the living entity is sleeping, but the snake is still awake. That means the life air is still active. So therefore, one can dream when we sleep, like that. So there are various desires which are represented by the hundreds of wives for each of the material senses. So she says that we will satisfy you, uh, that we have come together and you have come here. That means you have attained a human birth. You have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best in all respects to fulfill your desires. So this is uh, the confirmation or the material intelligence is giving to the living entity, that in all ways I'll try to fulfill your desires. So that is mentioned here. And then she says, you may live here in the city of nine gates so that you can have all kinds of sense gratification. You may live here for 100 years and everything for your sense gratification will be supplied. So that is the conviction or assurance which this material intelligence is giving, so that you reside in this city of nine gates, the body. So Prabhupada is pointing out that how uh, the wife is the cause of dharma, artha, kama, mokshanam, dara, samprapti, hetava. The wife is the cause of all kinds of success in religion, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately salvation. So Prabhupada is pointing the different aspects of how the brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, how it is helpful for spiritual emancipation. So that aspect Prabhupada is pointing out. Then in text number 38, all others are incompetent. So she is saying that I will unite or I will marry you only because all others are incompetent to satisfy me or unite with me. They are like animals because they do not know the process of sense enjoyment in this life and after death. So Acharyas are pointing out that this jiva who has come to the city of nine gates, so this is like he getting a human body. But on all other forms, the animal birth, the plant birth, the tree birth, the aquatic birth, the the intelligence is very curtailed. It's not developed. The senses are not developed so much. So they cannot actually give enjoyment or not able to satisfy the material intelligence to that extent. So you getting uh, this the city of nine gates, the human birth, that has the capacity to satisfy me. So I will unite with you. And then text number 39, she says that in this material world, a householder life brings all kinds of happiness in dharma, artha, and kama. And there are children, sons, grandsons, and these these householders, they can actually get uh, the results of sacrifice, which enable him to go to higher planets. And this is unknown to transcendentalists. They cannot even imagine such happiness. So she is like pointing out importance of connecting with material intelligence, the desire to enjoy. So Prabhupada in the purport is talking about pravritti marg and nivritti marg, that how nivritti marg is taken recourse by those who want spiritual emancipation, and pravritti marg is taken by those who want to enjoy in this world. They think that dharma, artha, kama is all in all. So that is mentioned. And then further on, so recommending only dharma, artha, kama is and not moksha is ignorance. So that is mentioned. So then she says actually that if you maintain this household life, it will is pleasing not only to oneself but to the forefathers, demigods, great sages, and rishis. So this household life where we will stay together, we will combine, will be pleasing not to oneself but to all these also. So Prabhupada is pointing out that as soon as one has birth, he has dead towards the devtas, he has dead towards the forefathers, he has dead towards the sages and the common man in turn. But Prabhupada is saying that one who takes shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, he can actually be freed from all obligations. So that is mentioned. And you are a hero, you are Veera. Na nama Veera Vikyatam. You are a Veera, you are Vikhyat, you are very famous, you are so magnanimous. Vadan Vadanyam Priya Darshanam. You're so beautiful. And so therefore, who will not accept such a hero as you? So then that is how she accepts the material intelligence representing Puranjani. She also accepts the Puranjan, the living entity who wants to enjoy in this city of nine gates. So this strong bond is created. So, and she is also proposing that you are traveling for our benefit only. So you are our Nath. So then text number 43 and 44, it's concluded that they mutually agreed that we want to marry, we want to stay together, help each other in sense enjoyment, and they entered the city and stayed for 100 years. So Prabhupada is pointing out that how 100 years calculation is proportional to the planet in which one stays, but it's 100 years of that planet. And then text number 44, he says that many professional singers used to sing about the glories of King Puranjan and his glorious activities. When it was too hot in summer, he used to enter a reservoir of water. He would surround himself with many women and enjoy their company. So acharyas are pointing out to last verse and this verse to three states of existence for a living entity. That is Jagrati, Swapna, and Shushupti. So they are saying Jagrati, when he is enjoying for 100 years in his wakeful state, that is Jagrati. Swapna, playing with women in his dream state. Because the senses do not function at this time, actions continue by their impressions, the woman. So when he is accompanied by the woman intelligence, that is like Swapna, his dream state. Whatever enjoyment he desired or he meditated or created impressions for, those enjoyments he is trying to undergo in his sleep state. And Sushupti, like it's mentioned, he entered the river or reservoir of water. So that is the space in the heart where the jiva resides during deep sleep. So acharyas are pointing out how the jiva has these three states of existence. That is Jagrati, Swapna, and Shushupti. Like that. So he is enjoying in this way. So that is mentioned in text number 43 and 44. Then further it's mentioned from 45th to 55th verse, the 9 gates of the city and the other inhabitants. So who are the, what is this 9 gates of the city and what are their other inhabitants? So it's very nicely summarized that it's mentioned in text number 47 that what are the 7 gates. So there are of the 9 gates, 7 were on the surface and 2 were subterranean. So there are total of 9 gates in this body. So the 7 gates on the surface are the 2 eyes, the 2 nose, 1 mouth, and 2 ears. So they are on the surface. And the rectum and the genital, they are subterranean. So they are the 9 holes. So 2 eyes, 2 nose, nostrils, 1 mouth, 5, and 2 ears, 7. So they are on the surface, and the rectum and genital, they are subterranean. So that is mentioned, and these are used by cities government. So Prabhupada is mentioning how uh, in ancient India, the cities will be made where there will be gates in historical cities, even today in Delhi or in Ahmedabad. So to give protection or from where they will move about from one place to another. So 5 led to the eastern side, 1 led to the northern side, 1 led to the southern side, and 2 led to the western side. So this is how these 9 gates are situated. So the 5 which are on the eastern side are the 2 eyes, the 2 ear, the 2 nostrils, and the 1 mouth. So they are on the eastern side. So why they are said to be the eastern side? Prabhupada and Acharya is mentioning because the eyes get the sight to see from the sun, and the sun is said to arise from the eastern side. So they are eastern side. 1 ear and the other ear. So 1 ear is on the northern side and the other ear is on the southern side. And the genital and rectum, they are supposed to be on the western side. So these are the different doors that are mentioned. And now the details of each of them are mentioned. So 47th mentions that there is Khadyota and Avirmukhi. So Khadyota refers to the glowworm and Avirmukhi refers to the torchlight. So the left eye is compared to Khadyota, the glowworm, and the right eye is compared to the torchlight. So in general, scriptures mention that left eye is less powerful and right eye is more powerful. So the glowworm gives very less light and the torchlight gives more light. So the left eye is compared to Khadyota and the right eye is compared to Avir Mukhi. And what is the destination or the sense object? Vibhrajitam. Vibhrajitam. Vibhrajitam is referring to the form because the eye is what is the destination or what is the sense object is the form which it wants to enjoy or wants to see. And who is the accompanying friend? Duman, Dyumat Sakha. Dyumat Sakha, referring to Duman, is the sun. Because unless the sun is there, the sunlight is there, the eyes cannot see. The friend of the eyes is the sun. So the eyes will be able to see when it's the friend Duman is accompanying it. So that is mentioned about the eyes. Next is mentioned about the two nostrils, Nalini and Nalini. So to inhale and exhale and to smell. So that is the purpose of these two nostrils. And what is the destination of sense object? Saurabha. Saurabha is referring to the smell. And what is the accompanying friend? Avadhutaha, the nose. The nose is the accompanying friend through which the nostrils are able to smell. So that is mentioned. Then text number 49 means Mukhya. The chief of all gates is the mouth. Why it's called the chief of all gates? Because it has two purposes. It eats and it speaks. So it accompanies two functions. So it's called Mukhya. So it's for used for eating and speaking. So Bahudana. So the destination is eatables. One is Bahudana, to eat, eatables, and Apana, speech. So these are the two destinations. And what are the accompanying friends? Rasagya and Vipana, the voice. Rasagya is the taste or the tongue, or Vipana is the voice. So these are the two accompanying friends which are mentioned. And then Pitruhu, the right ear, is mentioned as the Pitruhu, which is for Karma Kanda, which elevates to Pitraloka, and is Dakshina Panchala or Pravritti scriptures. So that is the destination of sense object. And Devahu is mentioned in 51, the left ear for Jnana Kanda, higher planets above Sarga. And what is the destination? The Uttara Panchal or Nivritti scriptures. So Shrutidhar, ear, is the friend which is required. So that is mentioned in 50 and 51. And then 52 and 53 refer to the two subterranean gates, which are the western gates. So first is mentioned as Asuri. So genitals is referred to as an Asuri here. And what is the destination of sense objects? Gramakam, that is sex life. And what is the accompanying, who is the accompanying friend? Drumada. Drumada is madness. So Prabhupada is saying why they are on the western side, because generally western side is known more for sense gratification. So therefore they are on the western side, and they are used, genital is used for sex enjoyment, and they are therefore asuri, something which is against the principle of spiritual emancipation. And Nrittir Nam Paschadvas, and rectum is referred to as Nrittir. And what is the destination or sense object is called as Vaishasa, painful. And who is the friend? Look, the Kena is the greed. So Prabhupada is saying why pain is referred, because Prabhupada is saying that the living entity leaves being conditioned by this body or material desires, he leaves from the rectum. And even while evacuation, there is a lot of pain involved, especially through tongue. We eat so many unwanted things, and while evacuation, there is so much of pain involved. So therefore, destination is Lubdha, is Vaishasa. So that is mentioned about these 9 gates. And then to conclude, who are the other inhabitants of the city? 54 mentions there's Nirvak and Prasheshakrit, the feet and the hands. They are blind because the feet and hands don't have any holes. They cannot see. They act as per the dictations of the mind. So They are used to go here and there and perform activities with two blind men. And then text number 55 mentions there is this mind, Vishu Chinna. Sometimes he used to go to his Antapura heart with Vishu's chain. At that time, he experienced illusion, tamas, satisfaction, sattva, and happiness, rajas. So when the mind is situated with or is going to Antapura, Antapura is referring to the heart, the capital city. There is either experience of illusion, there is either experience of satisfaction, or there is either uh, experience of happiness. So they are representing the tamas, rajas, and sattva from his wife and children. So the wife is the intelligence, and who are the children? They are the objects of intelligence, such as generalizing, particularizing, ascertaining, and realizing. So that is the nature of the intelligence: generalizing, particularizing, ascertaining, and realizing. So the mind also comes into the picture. So if we engage the mind properly with good intelligence, then we can come out of this. So then Puranjana is captivated by his wife. He fulfilled all her desires, being thus entangled in mental speculation and furtive actions, being lusty, kamatma, cheated, vanchita, and foolish, abudha. He followed her every move. He drank, dined, chewed, sang, cried, laughed, talked loosely, walked, stood still, lied down, sat, heard, saw, smelled, exactly following her. So, however, the mind or the intelligence, basically the intelligence is dictating, material intelligence, the jiva is falling as it is. So, it is like enjoying with the wife, Puranjani. So, he became like a pet animal, it's mentioned in the end. Thus, foolish Puranjana, Agyana, was cheated by his own nature. Even against his desire, he remained under her control, just like a pet animal. Krida Mrigaha. Krida Mrigaha is referring to how he is a pet animal. So that is the nature of uh, the Puranjan, the Jiva, who actually combines with Puranjani, wife or material intelligence. So it's mentioned that he became like Krida Mriga Yatha, just like a pet animal. So Prabhupada is mentioning Mahat Swara Dwaram Ahur Vimukte. If one has association of saintly person, he can be liberated. But if one has association of uh, opposite sex or those who are attracted to opposite sex, it will bind him. So that is the nature of this conditioning which one gets being entrapped in this material body. So this concludes the uh, this 25th chapter. Anyone has any points of discussion here? Okay. So let me ask one uh, discussion point. Here we see Narad Muni is coming to help Prachini Bharishat or Bharishat to bring him out of his uh, gross involvement or very deep involvement in karma kandya rituals. But Narad Muni uses a very unique way to bring across his point, telling an allegorical story of Puranjan. So throughout Bhagavatam, we see Narad Muni is one of the main preachers or guru, but it seems that he uses different kinds of preaching techniques or different kinds of ways to make the same point across. So can we have some discussion or something, some learning from this aspect? Yes, Prabhu. Garshan.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, thank you. It's an interesting point. A couple of comments I'll make, Prabhu, and then the others can add. One thing is, in this particular case, Narad Muni is speaking to a very, powerful, successful king. And usually people who are very successful in positions of great power and opulence, it's very difficult to preach to them directly. And a successful or an expert preacher of the Lord is always very careful to decide how to approach a particular living entity to deliver him by presenting the message in a way that that living entity will not reject it. So for those who are quite proud, and of course pride is usually accompanied by envy, it is usually not easy to tell them on their face that you are nonsense, you are materialistic, you are attached. So in this case, it seems like Narad Muni is taking a very subtle approach to telling a story which is fascinating and which will capture his imagination, and slowly the message will seep in until the point that he himself comes to realization, because sometimes that is the best way to help the living entity to come to the realization of his very difficult entrapped condition, rather than telling him on the face. So at least in this particular engagement that Narad Muni is doing, that seems to be his approach, bro. That's my one comment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Uh, Bhai Hari, Prabhu, you want to add something?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. I
Yes.
was actually on mute. Um, Another point that comes to my mind, Prabhu, is that by using these techniques of allegory and analogy, um, one is able to express a lot more in it's like putting a bitter medicine in a sweet capsule so the person can digest it. So like in this allegory, there are so many points that are made, and if they were made just as teachings, then it would be very pedantic. Point one, point two, the jiva as material body, and etc., etc. But then, as a story, it is sometimes humorous. It is also suspenseful. There is war, there is battle, there is defeat and victory. So it's engrossing, and then at the same time, the person is learning. It's like parents, like they when they're trying to feed their children, they'll make them watch something or play something, and then while they're laughing, they'll put the food in the mouth. So it's like a technique to put in a lot of otherwise maybe unpalatable philosophy in a more palatable way.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Ramacharya Prabhu. I just reminds me before Ramacharya Prabhu says, Prabhupada tells in one place that one child or one student, he was unwilling to learn maths. So then the teacher is thinking how to learn. So he tells that, oh, there was one boy and he had brought 2 apples, and then a friend gave him 2 apples. So then how many apples he had? So then, getting absorbed in the story, the boy was also learning maths. So then, how one uses one's intelligence or to actually give the message subtly. So that is it. Okay. Thank you.
Prabhu,
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So I see this as a two-step approach. Devotees have very clearly mentioned excellent points, but I'm just trying to add few additional thought. So it's kind of two-step approach. And if you see the flow of the story, once basically we are reading the purport, and then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is telling exactly what is the meaning of 9 gates, and all the other words that's being used by Narad Muni. But the later King himself is asking Narad Muni that, what is the meaning of this 9 gates and other stuff that starts in the later part of the chapter. So two-step approach. First, make the point. Make the point in a like you said very nicely that sugar coated way, in a very palatable way. Make the point that you want to make, and then if there is curiosity to know more about it, then you unfold it. And that's what approach I see here, that how to basically preach the people. Sometimes we may have to take an indirect approach to make the point, and then if you see that person is interested to learn more, then slowly and slowly we unfold and tell the deeper aspect of the philosophy. So that's what I learned from here.
Okay, thank you. Just to summarize, so the point that Gorachand Prabhu mentioned about how sometimes those who are of that caliber, intelligence, those who think they are intelligent, they need to have been given a facility to think or come to conclusion themselves. So they feel that I have made that choice or I have made that conclusion. So that aspect, and then how to put it up, as the other devotees mentioned about how sugar coated way, where it has to be presented in such a fashion that it is palatable, it is very interesting, it is very lively, and then one can come to conclusion which will be which will go with him throughout his life. It's like it's a conviction, it's not just some knowledge, it comes as conviction. So one of our leaders here, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, mentions always that when we are speaking or preaching, we should know who the audience is, and accordingly we should speak the message, make it relevant and appropriate for them. So Narad Muni, through his teaching and preaching in Bhagavatam, is showing through in various episodes, he is adapting, like Dhruva story we saw, and now here the Prachini Bharishad, then later Hari Ashwa, Shavalashwas we will see, and others like Prahlad Maharaj, etc. How he adapts, but he gives the same message, but he makes it very, very relevant, relishable, and very, very engrossing for them to accept it, relish it, accept in their lives. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Prabhu, one question, Prabhu. Can I ask now?
Yes, bro.
Okay, Prabhu. This Susipti, this coma stage, is it Susipti, Prabhu? Coma stage.
It's coma stage Sushupti.
Susipti, Prabhu. Susipti, you told, na? Swapna, Jagrati, Susipti.
I have not heard about this, that it is Susupti. I'll have to check. I'm not sure. Coma stage can be classified under Susupti.
Okay. This consciousness will be there, right? The coma stage also, the living entity will be conscious.
Yes, it's living means it's conscious.
Conscious. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Prabhu, can I make a comment on that?
Yes,
is that okay?
Prabhu. Yes.
Yeah. Now this is just I'm just sharing some understanding. So I'm not giving any conclusive response, but it seems sometimes in the coma stage also, which may externally appear as comatose for the body, there is an experience that the living entity inside is sometimes aware of what is happening externally. Yeah. And there have been cases where they are able to perceive even here, even though externally they do not show any consciousness symptoms. Yeah. Sushupti technically is characterized as dreamless sleep. Yeah, where one is practically unaware. It is considered one level just above transcendence, right? Above in the sense, not above, under, I should say. Yeah. So Sushupti is the deep stage when one practically forgets one's bodily consciousness. But of course, is in a conditioned stage. and is practically unaware. So, of course, we do not know all the possible states of consciousness within coma, but because coma itself may have a range of consciousness, for the living entity within it. So I suspect that we cannot confidently map it to one stage. It may, even within the coma stage, it is possible that one may transition through multiple of these stages. Is my thought, Prabhu. Just sharing.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so thank you all for your enthusiastic and very, very patient
Prabhu,
participation.
I have a small question. Can I ask?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, so now I'm getting 3 emails for the classes.
Yes,
Are you following me?
yes, 3 emails for the
And
classes.
yeah, and this class is matching with where I am at my study. So I am in the 4th canto, and what you were talking is what I am also working on. So I try to match with this class. But then other 2 classes, they started from the beginning, and I was on one of the class, and I heard them talking about the very first verse of Bhagavatam, and then the second batch, I don't know where they are. So do we have to choose which one we want to be at, or what is the concept behind it? Which one is
Because
for whom?
yeah, so what is the understanding here is different devotees, because this is self-paced uh, bhakti vaibhav course. So different devotees are joining at different times. Generally we'll have one set time where devotees join. So whichever pace you are comfortable at, you can, or you have already, some are joining now, some have joined 1 month back, 2 months back. So wherever they are, they can join that particular session. But one session you have to keep as your primary session where your attendance will be recorded. Other sessions you can hear if you feel inspired or if you want to go more in depth. So that is how it goes. But one of the sessions you should keep as your primary, where you keep your attendance and focus.
Got it, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this session is for us. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, but
Yes.
that's perfect. It's we are getting up in the morning anyways. But the thing is that I just wanted to have some points of clarification so that I know what I'm doing. I got it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Prabhu. Dandavad.
Dandavat. Hare Krishna. So we'll end here. Thank you very much again. Hare Krishna.